About a month ago, Justin Trudeau appeared at the University of British Columbia to speak to Canada's left coast youth. In a Q&A with student media, he was asked by one journalist, Sam Fenn, about the state of heroin, crack, and crystal meth in Canada, whether or not he'd consider decriminalizing. After all, Trudeau's been vocal about legalizing marijuana. It's one of his few solid policy commitments. Now Trudeau says he doesn't want to legalize hard drugs, phew. But something else he said caught my attention.
What do you have to say about the prohibition of heroin, crack cocaine, crystal methamphetamine?
Yeah, no, I disagree with loosening any of the prohibition on harder drugs. I think there's much that we can and should be doing around harm reduction. Insight's a great model of that, and I certainly want to see more safe injection sites opened around the country.
Did you catch that very last part? Here, listen again.
And I certainly want to see more safe injection sites opened around the country.
Insight, if you're unfamiliar, is a heroin injection site in Vancouver, a taxpayer-funded facility that lets junkies shoot up in their building, a site that gives addicts a green light to inject illegal drugs and flout the law. Trudeau says he wants more of these opened around the country, Insight franchises, if you will. You might be thinking, well, where will these heroin shooting sites go? Surely not in my neighborhood. I wouldn't be so sure. Despite conservative efforts to shut down Insight, once it was opened, there was no turning back. And in September 2011, Canada's activist Supreme Court, in a unanimous decision, ruled that closing the facility would violate the rights of addicts. That's right. According to the Supreme Court, injecting illegal heroin is a right under Pierre Trudeau's charter. This decision effectively opened the door to drug injection sites across Canada. Seriously, we are now in a situation where if some group tries to set up one of these sites, there's potentially little a community can do to stop it, because that would violate the addicts' charter rights. So could one of these heroin shooting sites end up in your community, in your neighborhood, near your home, near your kid's school or daycare, your church? It's not impossible. The Conservatives introduced Bill C-2, the Respect for Communities Act, which requires that any site providing free needles to drug addicts meets certain requirements. So, if you're going to open a heroin injection site in a community, one of these requirements is to ensure you've properly consulted the community. Another requirement would be to ensure that you have a letter from the head of police in that community. There are a few other requirements, like ensuring needles and other drug paraphernalia aren't strewn about for children to pick up, stuff like that. Personally, I wish we didn't have to allow these injection sites at all, but our intellectual superiors at the Supreme Court have spoken. All things considered, the Conservative bill seems pretty reasonable, right? Along with the NDP, the Trudeau Liberals, of course, oppose this common sense bill. Here's Justin Trudeau voting against the bill.
Those opposed to the motion will please rise.
Mr. Julian. Mr. Julian. Madame Laverdière. Madame Laverdière. Monsieur Trudeau. Monsieur Trudeau. Mr. Macaulay. Mr. Macaulay. Monsieur Bélanger. Monsieur Bélanger.
Accordingly, the bill stands referred to the Standing Committee on Public Safety and National Security.
Opponents say these requirements are too tough and that they'd prevent any future injection site from opening. How dare communities have input on where these things go and how they're maintained? Don't kid yourself. It's me and you who'd be paying. It's not like the junkies will be crowdsourcing their own heroin injection center. These things cost money to operate. They require staff to supervise. The building isn't just open from 9 until 5. Drug addictions aren't a part-time thing. And by the way, these injection sites aren't just the beginning. If you think the next step isn't providing the junkie with his clean supply of drugs, you're delusional. We've already seen a push in Vancouver, where else, to provide free prescription-grade heroin to addicts as part of a supposed temporary academic trial. Clean needles aren't enough. A nurse's supervision isn't enough. Got to provide the addict with a clean supply of drugs, right? The Health Canada bureaucrats allowed it, and Health Minister Rona Ambrose, upon finding out about it, shut it down in the fall of 2013. Her decision, of course, is now facing a charter challenge in the courts. Sound familiar, right? It's the Insight challenge all over again. And what did Trudeau think about Ambrose's decision at the time? Watch.
I respect science. I respect scientists who've done studies and examined the consequences of different actions and recommendations.
That's right. He sided with the unelected bureaucrats who decided it was appropriate to spend your and my hard-earned tax dollars on buying junkies' prescription heroin. So Justin Trudeau wants to see heroin injection sites all across the country?
And I certainly want to see more safe injection sites opened around the country.
Heroin injection sites coming to your community, sites that will no doubt end up paying for. And Trudeau seemingly has no problem with spending your money on buying those junkies their drugs. Let's be clear, despite people like Justin Trudeau referring to safe injection sites, there's nothing safe about injecting heroin into one's veins. But this is the crazy, distorted universe the Liberals live in. Don't forget, it was the Liberal government of Jean Chrétien that opened the door to Insight in the first place in 2003, a temporary academic trial that just ended up becoming permanent via Pierre Trudeau's charter. Justin Trudeau doesn't talk serious policy often, but I'd say he just gave us a very scary glimpse of what a second Trudeau government would look like, and it's terrifying.